My name is Arjunius, also known as the Vegan Knight, and today we're talking about the psychology of the Dark Knight. There are a few spoilers in this video, so if you plan on savoring every scene in this film, I'd recommend watching that first and then coming back to this video. You have been warned. Starts out in year 2 of Batman and shows Rob Pattinson's version of the character, who is still working on mastering himself as he's very unhinged in this movie. He is still coping with the tragedy he has been through, which everyone already knows about, so it's good they didn't bother showing any flashback scenes of Bruce's parents' murder. But what they do show is how his tragedy is the driving force behind his character. It's his self-therapy. That force of wanting to be the protector of the streets of Gotham, to be the shadow of Gotham and instill fear, all draws from his transformative tragedy and drives his single-minded will of vengeance. Now, in my book, I mentioned that the brightest saviors carry the darkest traumas. This is especially true with Batman's character. The psychology of that is a term known as post-traumatic growth, which is when an individual acknowledges that suffering is not the only option after trauma, and after they heal from traumas, they reach a significantly higher psychological well-being. This higher reach of wisdom also allows them to help others going through or about to go through similar traumas by bashing people in the face. Just kidding, I don't condone that. Interestingly, the post-traumatic growth has almost got him addicted to being this persona of Batman that he's created and not Bruce Wayne. In fact, 90% of the film is Batman and not much Bruce. Even when we see him as Bruce, he just looks miserable. He doesn't want the emotional baggage of being Bruce. He wants to be someone else, to become something else.
I had to become someone else. I had to become something else. I had to become vengeance.
He wants to channel all his rage from his trauma into a force of fear and literally become the shadows of Gotham. He intimidates the crime-ridden streets of Gotham. Hell, he even intimidates the GCPD, who you think would have control over their own city. And why don't they arrest a vigilante breaking laws like the Batman? Well, there are two psychological tactics that Batman uses to command respect from the GCPD as the story progresses. Now, these tactics are pretty well known, and I'm sure you probably have heard about them, but the way Batman uses them are very subtle and innovative in his own way. Psychological tactic 1. Earn respect by giving value. Batman was initially seen as a vigilante breaking the law, but every time he appears on a crime scene and they want him out, he quickly showcases that he is the world's greatest detective and one step ahead of the GCPD by giving them intel that they desperately need. He demonstrates his mystery-solving skills.
It looks like we have a real mystery on our hands.
And so whether they like him or not, they can't help but use him to solve the crime. Even one of the forensic photographers was straight up just following Batman around the crime scene and taking photos of what Batman noticed.
Jinkies.
So the valuable pieces of the puzzle that Batman provides without asking anything in return quickly changes the hostile environment and atmosphere against him, because as the story progresses, he earns the respect of the GCPD. Psychological tactic 2. Say less to command the room. With less of anything comes more value in what's left. In this case, it's the amount of words Batman decides to vocalize.
Justice. The answer's justice.
It's his actions that do the talking about his worth, not his words. He boldly locks eyes with people and lets that intimidating silence naturally breed curiosity to be followed and listened to. This was shown very brilliantly in the scene where Batman revisits Riddler's apartment to look for evidence, and the officer is about to stop Batman, but he quickly succumbs to Batman's intimidation. And I liked how Batman would point the flashlight at Officer Martinez to get him to talk more about what he knows regarding the Carpenter tool. And it's ironic given that cops are usually the ones to shine their flashlights into suspects' faces, but Batman is out here being the alpha cop. Then when Batman discovers a secret plan to bomb the city, he finally opens his mouth and whispers, "Call Gordon." And Officer Martinez immediately says he'll do so. Of course, there are some toxic psychological tactics that Batman uses, like when he was face to face with poor old Edward Nygma, And the Riddler thought that Batman was going to be his bestie, but Batman just instead gaslights him.
You're out of your goddamn mind. What? This is all in your head. You're sick. Twisted. How can you say that? You think you'll be remembered? You're a pathetic psychopath begging for attention.
But he does mature through some of his toxic traits, like when he sees Alfred on his hospital bed, he quickly acknowledges how him not caring for his own well-being can affect those around him. He even recognized using Selina for his own gain was endangering her, which, by the way, did anyone get Batman Beyond vibes from this scene? A Batman navigating you through a mission,
McGinnis, get out of there now!
neo-gothic looking club. Selina even looked like Max here. It felt almost like an Easter egg. But anyways, I liked how these traits made his character more human, because it shows that Batman is a mantle he has to still mold into, and he's not going to be perfect in year 2. But altogether, I think the movie was really well psychologically driven, and I think it did a good job at really just amalgamating a lot of the different elements of Batman throughout the past couple decades. Even the time period was amalgamated, which I don't know how they were able to pull off. But if you notice, the cars and phones were really reminiscent of the 90s aesthetic, but then at the same time they had modern technology like social media. So I have no complaints about this movie. I thought it was a masterpiece, and I figured I would just give my brief 2 cents on the psychology of this movie, but I'm sure this movie could be studied for weeks and you will find even more intellectual information in the story. So be sure to check out my other work if you did enjoy this video, and let me know in the comments down below what you thought, and I hope to see you next time. Chaos out.